As I get older, I'm 31. I can't sometimes help feeling that I wish I did certain things earlier. And I just feel annoyed with myself that either I didn't figure out certain knowledge that I have now earlier, or, you know, certain habits and hobbies that I do now that I just wish I had acquired earlier in life. Bouldering, love it. One of my favorite sports, if not my favorite sport so far. I've been doing it for 6 months. I love it. I wish I started earlier. Music production, been interested in it for so long. Was watching YouTube videos for as long as I can remember about production tips and etc. But I never actually put the effort into sitting down and doing music production consistently and learning it. YouTube, I started this channel 2-3 years ago, and if I started it 10 years ago, ooh, I would already have that YouTube plaque. Maybe investing in stocks, you know, financial things that would compound over time, and social skills. That's the big one that I only really started to get better at, just being able to talk to people, having more confidence about myself and my ability to just talk to random people. I was never really good at that when I was younger, and that's something that I've had to build with time. And in a way, it's kind of a pattern that I know isn't healthy, because, you know, if I feel like I've screwed up or effed up because my life could be so much better now, I could have more, you know, more money now if I just made different decisions in the past by having certain skills that I have now. Yeah, that is true. Like, I'm not going to deny that the reality of that being a real thing that is true and holds truth to it. But it's something that I struggle with pretty often. Like, I think one thing that I am very grateful at in terms of my personality is that I just love learning stuff, like learning new cool editing tricks in software, or learning like music production stuff, or learning like a new tool or something that makes my workflow better, so it gives me time back, you know, anything to do with creativity in that area. I just love learning new stuff, but this endless pursuit of learning stuff does result in me facing a lot of situations where I'm constantly discovering new stuff that makes my life better. And then I'm like, oh no, how long has this mindset been around for? It's been around forever. I should have had that when I was in my 20s. At the end of the day, I wouldn't have discovered these things if I was lacking them. Like, if I just was really, really good as a business guy or as a creative guy or whatever, there's no way I could be at that stage without first realizing that I'm lacking in skills and then growing towards them. And maybe some of you resonate with the idea of that when you were younger, you know, you had interests, maybe there were things that you liked, and you had hobbies and things that you like to do, but none of those things very early on led to success, right? Like, you know, we hear the stories of the musician who started really young and then got fame in their early 20s, and then now like they're still being a musician and living their life. And I just never really had that experience where I loved video games. I like doing sports as well, but never in like an athletic capacity. And I liked, you know, making stupid videos on like a crappy phone and sometimes putting them on YouTube. But there was never anything where I was like, oh, I know this is my path. This is my dream. I'm going to make it happen. It was only until early in my 20s when I figured that out. And then the path to success, whatever that is defined as, is still ongoing for me. And yeah, like I just feel sometimes that, you know, especially with social media now and seeing other people's success, etc., like I do sometimes have that sense of, oh, why have I not achieved? Like, it's not so much like why have I not achieved what they have? It's more like, why have I not achieved my own success to the level that maybe they have? And yeah, I kind of am still wrestling with why I feel this way sometimes, and how I can get better with it, because it is still a struggle for me. You know, there's like simple things like YouTube, like making a video like I am now. Like, I wish I consistently did that in the way that I've been doing for the last 2-3 years when I was in my early 20s, because I dabbled with YouTube a little bit, but I never really put the effort in that I have been over the last few years to be consistent, putting stuff out, growing my skills of being able to talk on camera. And I just feel like, you know, I would have had 100,000 subscribers by now. I would have already built, like, I had a decent income coming in from YouTube, and now I feel like being in my early 30s, I'm still like, I'm only now chasing doing this thing that I should have started doing years ago. And that's like a really clear example that you can probably relate to in your own life as to what area that you feel, how I feel about, you know, not being there yet. And I don't know, like, I feel like maybe the real struggle is just the idea of like, if I really look back, and it's hard to look back 10 years ago know exactly what you were doing day to day. But I probably just wasted so much time on stuff that wasn't useful. Didn't use my time effectively, or like was just not actually taking action in skills that would actually really compound. The only skills that I can really think of where I was doing that was sports. Like I've always done sports. Luckily, like always done some kind of sport regularly, which is amazing. And I'm pretty sure it's only going to help me health-wise as I get older in the long run. And then being interested in video, YouTube, like I think music production is a really good example of where, you know, I've always been interested in kind of making music, but never had the confidence or actually putting the focus to learn this skill. Kind of dabbled with it, then gave up, and then come back to it and gave up. And that was just a consistent pattern that hasn't gone away for 10 years. And only now I've like actually made like songs that are basically ready to be released, sort of. I don't think they're all right. I mean, in comparison to musicians, they're probably, but in general, like, you know, in comparison to what my skill level was like a few years ago, they're okay. But yeah, there's just so many areas where, like, if only my life situation was different when I was being brought up, if only my environment was different, if only that was like, there was another YouTuber who lived like on my street, and then we made YouTube videos together, and then like that was the beginning of my YouTube journey. Like that seems to be quite a common thing of people who got like big in whatever they were doing. They weren't lone wolves just doing their thing. They eventually met someone or knew someone who was doing the same thing. And then obviously if you've got another person making YouTube videos together with you, or is a musician who you know, then you're more likely to keep doing that, because you can just motivate each other, especially if someone is as interested in that thing as you. And I just never had that. So I do think luck plays a role in kind of how quick you get to where you want to be in life. But I guess that's also the beauty of the world that we live in now, because, you know, 20, 30 years ago, if you were in a situation where you were really interested in, let's say, you know, some video or cameras or whatever, you would just feel like a complete loner, because you'd be in a town or wherever you live, and you just don't know anybody else who is as interested in that thing as you. Versus YouTube and the internet, like we can actually consume content and observe people who are as interested in all of us at this thing. Obviously, like, unfortunately, they're not physically around us, but at least we know that they exist. We know that there are people like for me, I remember watching Corridor Digital, Freddie W, people like that. I mean, like, oh, there were these guys who were all friends together, and they make like cool VFX, filmmakery, cinematic YouTube content. I want to do that, but I just never had anybody who was like wanted to be on the journey with me, or just had the same interests. And that did make me feel lonely. It made me feel like, oh, like, I want to do this thing, but I don't have the motivation to keep doing it. So what do? Do I give up? Do I just hold out until I go to university, which is what I did eventually. I was like, all right, let's go to university/film school, like study this thing properly, and I'll be around filmmakers who are interested in all the same things as me. And that was true. But then obviously I left film school 10 years ago, worked on shoots with the people that I graduated with. But yeah, now I'm in a different country than where my film school was, and I know a few people who are filmmakers but day to day I'm just here in my apartment making YouTube videos on my own. I did say that in my year review that I wanted to meet more content creators and reach out to them, and I've done a bit of work in that, like more than I've ever done, but still I just get so distracted with the day-to-day tasks of what I need to do to survive and to live, and, you know, client work, etc., that I just put things like reaching out to people as a secondary, not even a secondary, like a third rank, fourth rank priority, which is kind of silly, because I think that if I actually put more effort into it, making YouTube videos would be even more fun than it already is. It just would make the whole process a lot more enjoyable to know that there's someone else on the path that I can bounce ideas off. And yeah, you hear the common, you know, if you get into any self-help development stuff, it is always a case of, you know, regret is the big thing, right? But I think you can actually feel regret because you didn't start things earlier. That in a way is the regret. I guess the way around that is to know that there's nothing you can do. Time is constantly moving forward. You're never going to change the mistakes that you made in the past, and the only thing that you can do is to do the thing now. Like, you know, I did consider, when getting back into music production in the last year or two, like, what's the point in all of this? I should have done this when I was 18, and like I would be way further ahead. There's no point doing this. I'm never going to be a successful musician. What's the point? But I don't think that is even important. Like, the point is that this is an interest that has been playing on my mind. I've been consuming it on YouTube, been interested in it forever. Would I regret not making a song ever, you know, being on my deathbed and knowing that I was interested in this thing, but just never put the time, effort, or just let other things prevent me from doing the thing. Yeah, I would totally regret that. And I think that for me is the biggest motivator now, when like I feel the regret. I feel the sense of, oh, I should have done this earlier. Oh, like I regret that I didn't do this thing when I was younger, or learn this thing when I was younger. It's like, yeah, that is one regret. Do you want two regrets? Because the second regret is going to be not even doing the thing now that you know you actually like and want to do that and put time and effort into learning this thing. And that mindset seems to be holding up so far in my life, where, you know, I just know I've become a lot more sensitive to what I am going to regret and what I still have time in this life to actually put effort in and grow in and do and learn about. Because ultimately, a lot of skills just extend to other skills, right? Like learning music production has made me better in sound design for my videos, for example, better at mixing. All these things like merged together into one thing, like being better at marketing and things like that has made me better at negotiations when I'm working with clients. So there's so many things that combined to help other skills that even if you learn it now, yeah, you might not win the best award and be allocated as like, you are the best at this particular skill, but maybe that's not really necessary anymore. You know, like the idea of the Renaissance man, the idea of being able to be decent at multiple skills. And maybe like, I think I'll always be stronger at video in general because I've been doing it for so long, and it would take me a lot of time to catch up to be at that level with any other skill. But yeah, I just think being able to learn new skills that will relate to, or maybe you don't realize that they'll relate to what your main skill is now, and then being able to integrate that together will make you say, oh, wow, I can't believe, like, if I didn't start doing that interest, I wouldn't be as good at this, and you know, on and on and on and on. So yeah, I think if you're someone who maybe is a little bit older, say I mean, if I was an 18-year-old looking at a 30-year-old, I'm like, that's an old person. But I bet 40-year-olds who are watching this are like, you're still young, Adam. You're literally 31. What the hell? Stop complaining. And yeah, I think and also there's so many people who got their success later in life. People like, you know, like Steve Carell, Samuel Jackson. These people didn't have the lucky break when they were 18, like Leonardo DiCaprio, and, you know, act all their life in massive big Hollywood blockbusters. And they're, you know, still super successful. And in a way, like I kind of have had this in the back of my mind as an idea. I think being super successful when you're young can actually be one of the worst things for you, because especially, it depends how successful you are, obviously, but I think there's a lot of shit you have to deal with by, you know, what success would bring you, like money, you know, maybe your ego gets inflated because you get successful really early, and I think that can actually can potentially turn you into a really not nice person in certain ways. And you would assume that if you go through life with a longer period of time, you've just grown as a person more, you've encountered more different types of people. Therefore, if you get success later in life, you've already built a lot of habits that just by their very nature require time to really get a handle on and to really build the skill up for. But there's also a bunch of things where, you know, my lack of success or growth in a certain area actually led me to where I am so specifically that I can track it. Like, I can track the trajectory of how being crap in this thing led me to being good in this thing. Like dating, for example, the first video that I ever made for this channel, when being consistent, was about how, you know, I learned how to talk to girls, and that was like, I was really terrible with talking to girls and dates, and I literally had no experience with that. And then my lack of success in that area led me to putting in time to being able to just see a girl that I like and say hi, which then eventually led me to working for a YouTube dating channel, working with them and growing their channel. Then that ultimately inspired me to start my own channel, because I'd seen what it was like to grow a YouTube channel completely from scratch, seeing the growth over multiple years. If you put in, you know, the consistency and the work to make the videos better, and you build a community, and the community want to work with you and they want to give you money, and then that's like, whoa, that really inspired me to start my own channel. And yeah, in a way, my success or look or something that I would have, if I started already being really good talking to girls earlier, I would have, I might have not even ever made a YouTube channel, because it wouldn't have led me to being inspired by the people who made me want to actually start my own. So yeah, it's weird how sometimes your lack of success in an area, or just in life in general, as long as you're still moving, as long as you're still exploring, as long as you can try and work on some of the stuff that you're not as good at, that could ultimately lead you to a life that you can't possibly imagine that you are living as you're living it. So yeah, I'm still on the journey. It's still gonna take some time to reach the goals that I have. I have short-term goals, I have long-term goals, but I just have to have faith that if I keep putting myself out there, if I keep trying to build a community and keep trying to contribute and document in my process, that, you know, this YouTube thing will be successful for me in the long run. And also that I hope I can just, like, it will allow me to connect with people who are similar and share similar like ideas and interests and stuff, just because I've worked on my ability to be able to speak in front of the camera, to make stuff, to be consistent, to find a routine and a system of putting out regular content. And that allows me to actually like connect with people who I otherwise wouldn't have. So my advice would be, if you're kind of, you know, feeling the same way that I have been around some of these ideas, you're not alone. I really feel it as well. I may be better than I was, but I still just have days where, you know, I just think, oh, am I just too old to start this thing? Why didn't I do that earlier? I don't get it, and like beating myself up. But ultimately, that mindset never helps you. There's never a time where I beat myself up about these things and think, oh yeah, that was good. I'm glad I mentally beat myself up about this topic, because that made me, now I feel more free. I feel better now. Like, this basically never happens. So I think we all just have to be kinder to ourselves, to know that, hey, like, yeah, you could have done that. Like, you can accept that, yeah, you probably should have done that before. And yeah, if you'd started doing this skill, you would be a lot better now. But you have the time to actually grow in that area now. You have the time to actually improve and get better and put the effort into being good or better than you were months ago with the time and effort that you're putting right now. So why not do it? Why not get it done? Because you'll look back and you're not going to regret that. Like, you're not going to regret putting the time and effort into something that was an interest to you at that particular time. Because even if that interest drops away eventually and you realize that you don't want to do it for whatever reason, you won't have that regret about like, oh, I wonder if I wouldn't, like, that itch will still be there unless you fully satisfy it with actually delving into learning or doing the thing that made the initial itch in the first place. I just think we've got to be more kind to ourselves, and we've got to just be aware that regret of not doing is way more painful than the regret of what you could have actually done when you were younger. If you like unscripted, more casual videos like this, then you'll probably also like this one where I talk about how being a creative can be quite lonely. So it's similar topics to what I've talked about in this video, but some of them in quite a bit more depth. That should hopefully, I hope, help you. Hit that subscribe button if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.